this passage, because what we're here to do is figure out, how do we have honest conversations about suicide? How do we do that? So here we have a story about a woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years. The story of the woman with the issue of blood. She had a hemorrhage for 12 years, and she had endured much at the hands of many physicians, and had spent all that she had and was not helped, but rather had grown worse. After hearing about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd, and she touched his cloak. And so, as we ask this question, who are the desperate among us, and how do we find them? If we're going to have honest conversations, we need to figure out who they are. So here's a story of a woman from the Bible who was desperate. She had been bleeding for 12 years. And that sounds like a terrible, terrible condition. That sounds awful. That would sound medically terrible. But it also says that because of her medical bills, she had spent all her money. So she was also destitute, financially destitute. She also had a condition that made her ceremonially unclean. During that time, she would have been ostracized from community. Her condition would have been experienced as shameful, not something she could talk about publicly, embarrassing, probably meant she couldn't work. So this woman is dealing with lots of things. And it says that she came up behind Jesus in the crowd and touched his cloak. So I want to tell you the parable of the skunk. Do you have skunks in Hawaii? No. Have you ever, anybody here never smelled a skunk? Well, you, okay. What's your version of a skunk? Huh? Yeah. Do you have like nasty, stinky animals that?
Not like a skunk.
Oh, not in paradise.
We don't have like
we don't have stinky animals in paradise.
Just normal stinky animals.
All right. Well, let me tell you that skunks are pretty awful. So there was once a woman who lived in an old farmhouse. I live in an old farmhouse. My house was built in the 1860s, and it's double brick, and it's this big old thing. And right now, like, they're digging up the clay pipes that have all collapsed on themselves. It's a mess. My husband calls it our third child. But these old farmhouses had deep cellars, like fruit cellars in the basement. And there was a woman who lived in one of these houses. And she went downstairs one morning to do laundry. That was where her washer and dryer are, just like mine. And she got downstairs and she found that the door that led outside of her basement had been left open overnight, and a skunk had gotten into her basement. So she freaked out because nobody wants a skunk in her basement. She ran upstairs and she called animal rescue. And she said, "Help me, I've got a skunk in my basement." And they said, "No problem. All you have to do is put a row of breadcrumbs from the door of your basement to the woods outside, and the skunk will take care of itself." Easy. So she did that. She called back an hour later. She said, "I took your advice, and now I have 2 skunks in my basement." So this is a woman that now has a 2 skunk problem. And in that story that I just read you, there is a woman who also has what we call a 2 skunk problem. She's got a physical problem that's bad all by itself. But then she's got this social stigma that's attached to that problem that is a whole separate problem. We are, as people, as communities, as faith communities, relatively good at dealing with what we call 1 skunk problems. A 1 skunk problem is a broken hip, it's a hurt knee, it's a broken bone of some kind, right? It's appendicitis, it's kidney stones. What do we do when a person has a 1 skunk problem as a community? How do we come around them? We're supportive, yeah.
Caring, concerned.
We ask questions. We show care. We show concern. Sure. What else do we do?
Usually tell a story about how we had something similar.
Yeah. Yeah, we do our best to connect to their experience so they don't feel so isolated or alone. We give them advice about what we've been through. Sure. What?
I can't tell you how many times people have come up to me recently and said, "Oh, by the way, my uncle had kidney stones," and all the people that have had kidney stones, because I'm experiencing kidney stones.
If Clyde leaves, there's a
that's
reason.
the way they're kind of like relating to me and letting me know I'm not alone.
Okay.
My suffering, and so
Yeah, somehow when we suffer with other people,
it's not as bad.
it's not as bad. That's right. Yeah. What are some of the practical ways we help people with their one skunk problems?
Find a resource to solve it.
Okay, we help them find resources. Yeah, that's right.
You might take them to appointments, help them take their medicine.
Offer
give them
rides.
therapies.
Yep. Yeah. Real practical assistance. We feed them. We might take them food. We might send them a pizza, whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we do with one skunk problems.